Live on WFLA Now. This is Run for Fun with running enthusiast Leigh Spann.
All right, welcome back to the Stream Center for this week's episode of Run for Fun. Yes, the first one of 2024. We designed this show to make running more accessible to people and try to show how it can really be enjoyable if you have the right mindset. I'm the host, meteorologist Leigh Spann here at WFLA in Tampa, but I'm an avid runner as well. And I do wish that someone had told me when I first started running some of these tricks that make running just a little bit more fun, to say the least. And I was lucky enough to eventually find a group of runner friends who helped me learn these things and continue to teach me these things. And of course, one of those is my coach, Coach Maria. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Leigh. So happy to see you.
Yes. I
feel like I haven't seen you in forever.
I know that we were just talking about the holidays. Like, it's so nice, but then it's also nice to get back into a routine.
It sure is. I took all my Christmas decorations down yesterday and I was like giddy. I'm like, yay.
The house looks nice and
I know,
put
right?
back together again. Interesting. I was hearing someone debate how long you can say Happy New Year to people.
Oh, I saw that on the news this morning, actually.
So I think
it said 3 days.
But that's today. But I feel like you're just seeing people in the New Year. So I would give it 5 days. Right? If you're seeing someone
what
new.
if you haven't seen the person in
Right.
the New Year for a while? Like you haven't seen them yet, you could still say Happy New Year.
Well, Happy New Year. Now that we are in January, of course, we have big things going on. Of course, our Strava group, the WFLA Run for Fun group, is continuing to grow. If you don't know what Strava is, it is a free app that you can download onto your phone, and that way you can keep up with your miles and how fast you go and things like that. But we use it as a social media. And so our group now up to 267.
Oh my goodness.
So if you download Strava, you set up your profile, then you can go to the groups, into the clubs and find WFLA Run for Fun. And then, you can talk to people, you can ask questions, you can talk to Maria. And Maria, our Run for Fun race is coming up on January 20th.
Coming right up. Actually, we're in our last heavy week and then we go into taper. So everybody seems to be doing really well with it. I can't wait to see how their 10Ks go.
Yeah, so the BDR 10K is on January 20th in Safety Harbor. And through the social media of Strava, Maria has been coaching our group to get ready. So hopefully if you come out to Safety Harbor on January 20th, you'll get to see me and Maria out there, run the 10K, and see if all of that hard work is going to come to fruition and you cross that finish line.
And even if you just want to come down and hang out and cheer, come on down.
You'll be looking for
Fun
Maria's on-track running tent.
Yes, I have a tent out there.
So we're at Run for Fun. We're just going to sneak up underneath that tent, and we'll hope
it works out.
Hope for good weather. And of course, this was a goal that many people set at the end of 2023 to run this race. But goals, Maria, that's sort of our topic for today. Number one is because we're not saying resolutions.
Yeah, we're not saying resolutions. Yeah. Even though last year we didn't say resolutions and we really kind of didn't do well in our resolutions last year.
It was probably the first time that I was the stereotypical, started out pretty strong and then just puttered out real fast in doing any sort of consistent yoga, because I was really only going to ask myself to do it 2 times a month. And I did it for about 2-3 months. And then.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like I don't even think I made it 3 weeks, and that's not very much like me.
Yeah.
It
isn't like either of us. And yet both of us did. Maybe it was we didn't tell the right people.
Well, so here's my thing. I kind of did a deep dive into why I didn't this year. And I came up with a lot of things actually that were really interesting in my reading that I think a lot of people do. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, because there's a lot that goes into goals that we don't think about really. We just think, oh, I want to be better in the new year. I want to, the biggest one is weight loss, right? Everybody's like, I want to lose weight. Well, I guess what I've realized is that we don't really talk about why. Like, we didn't really talk about that last year either. Like, why do you want to do yoga? Why did you want to do yoga? I mean, I know you said you wanted to stretch more.
I didn't realize
We don't,
at that point. I didn't actually realize that I was having the iron problem. So I thought
yeah.
I was like, what can I do to give myself some energy? Like something feels off. And so once I got my iron back
Oh,
on
yeah.
track, I didn't feel the need as much actually. So I just felt something was
Yeah.
off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, I do think a lot of people make goals based on what they think is off.
Hmm.
But isn't that funny? Because we've talked a lot about the stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
That's a good one right there, where you're like, okay, well, maybe something's off. So maybe it's my stretching. And it didn't have anything to do with your stretching at all,
Didn't.
right?
It
So,
did not.
like, we have to be really careful about those stories we tell ourselves as to reasons why we need to change things because we might not be right. I I found meditation. I thought I needed to meditate because I was feeling really unsettled in my life just because my kids had just left and we had just moved. And so I was like, I think I need to meditate. Well, it turned out for me that meditation actually was adding to my anxiety because it was like, oh, now you have more time by yourself to think. Like, I wasn't in a place in my life where I could really implement it in a healthy way. Now, I know if I was doing it correctly, I would have been able to, but I wasn't in a place in my life where I could really delve into that. So I kind of like started reading. I started reading about meditation, and then I started getting into some stuff about vulnerability and how we're vulnerable and how that applies to our goals. And I really realized that like I didn't really have a plan on how I was gonna meditate. Like I just said, okay, we're gonna do once a week. Okay. Well, why are we going to do once a week? How are we going to do it once a week? What are our checks and balances? And I think that's what I want to talk about today. Like, what can we do to, like, I did a post this morning on my On Track page and I said, I want you to give me 3 goals. And then I want you to give me 3 ways that you're going to implement this. And only about half the people did the second part of that question
Yeah.
because that gets a little uncomfortable, doesn't it? When you have to think about how you're going to apply this, um, and why you're going to apply this. Have you really thought about yours this year, Leigh? Or are you going to have any, or what have you thought about?
I mean, because I think at this point that I am going to step back at least for this year on full 26.2 marathons, then my goal, without much thought to put into it would be like, okay, then I'm going to work on speed and I'm going to work on my half marathon speed. And that seems like the logical goal. But as much as I might not be knowing exactly what's in my brain right now, because it's just like, well, if I don't have this goal, it has to be this second goal. I haven't given much thought into really why am I feeling this way? Why am I choosing not to do a full marathon? Is it even the half marathon that I want to focus on? I haven't put that thought into that. Really, I was going to say before you spoke just now, I was going to say, yes, my goal would be to get faster in my half marathon. But I just think that's just the quick answer because it's like, if I'm not going to do the distance, I'm going to work on the speed of the next distance. But I don't know if that's really what I need to do.
Well, and so let's talk about that for a second. I would like you to think about why you want that goal. I also want you to think about how you would go about doing that. Like obviously I'm the easy answer. Like, okay, coach can make me faster, right?
Yes, you can.
But I am 20% of the equation. Everybody thinks, oh, I need a coach. I can get fast, yada, yada, yada. Yep, you do. You do get faster with a coach. If you do the right things, right? So we don't want to talk about the unsexy stuff.
Yeah.
Like I got to be better about making sure I get enough protein and I get enough sleep and I get enough. I mean, we talk about it on the show.
We talk about it on our show.
Nobody really wants to talk about the unsexy stuff that comes along with the goals we make.
Because that's not the stuff that goes on social media.
Yes, exactly. And so we have this, and I also think it's our expectations around the goal, right? So a lot of times we give ourselves a timeline. I want to lose weight by, and I use lose weight because that's what everybody picks, right. But I want to lose weight by X day. And I think we set ourselves up for failure in that way because it's not easy to lose weight. So like in the same way as it's not easy to get faster. It's in the beginning, it's always easy to get faster. Like you can do everything wrong and get faster. But there comes a point in running, in music, in anything that we want to do long term and get better at, that you're not going to get faster. Like there's going to be a time where you have injuries, you have stuff that comes up, your iron is low, and we don't really prepare ourselves for that. We think, okay, if the goal is to get faster, I'm just going to get faster. And as soon as it starts to get hard, and I see this with my clients all the time, as soon as it gets hard, they're like, I'm burned out.
And you're saying, and not like hard, like the racing is hard or the running is hard, but I'm doing all the things and I'm not getting, it's getting harder to make those increases in speed, right?
Yes.
Not that the workout is harder, but that it's getting harder to get faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not only is it harder to get faster, which I'm not saying that is everybody gets faster eventually, but it could take you 5 or 6 years at one spot of doing the same thing and running to improve. And then all of a sudden you have a big, huge fitness jump. And as soon as people plateau for a hot minute, like, and I've had people be like, oh my gosh, I've had a year of no PRs. I'm like, a year? That's nothing. Like, like if you come to me and you're like, I haven't had a PR in 7 years or 5 years, I'll be like, okay, well, let's look at the unsexy stuff that you're not doing, because it does usually come down to the unsexy stuff that we say we're doing that we're not doing. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today, about really being vulnerable with yourself and really thinking about why you want the goal, how you're going to get to the goal, and also what are you not doing or not taking responsibility for in your life to hit the goal. Because it's easy to shirk responsibility on other people or other things, or I was just too busy, or coach is too busy, or, when we start shirking responsibility and blame onto other things, that's really because we're uncomfortable in ourselves and what we're doing. And we don't really want to deal with that conflict.
Well,
right.
And that was one of the things that you were talking to me last year about. Making a goal is so vulnerable. Like just saying, I want to do something and having other people know that that is something that you're opening yourself up to people to criticize and judge and keep an eye on.
Yeah. And I don't think we always go about that in the right way. I actually think there's a lot of people that are like, okay, I'm going to put on social media, this is my goal. But then our like little gremlins in our head are like, oh, they're judging me for my goal if I don't get it in a certain time. And I would even argue, think about why you're making your goal. Is it because you want to prove something to somebody on social media? Or is it because you really want the goal? Right? Because if you don't really want the goal, you're not going to do those unsexy things, right? If you're doing it for somebody else, you're not really going to follow through on it. Right? Like, and I would say my 2 goals this year were to do more plunging, ice plunging, and meditation. And I can tell you right now, that was because plunging is super trendy right now.
Yep.
And meditation, I actually have seen a couple of my clients really go really amazing places with meditation. I still have a goal of meditation, and I will, and I'm working through that, but I just wasn't doing it for the right reasons at that time. You see what I'm saying on that? So a couple things that I did differently this year that we'll see how it works, and we can maybe talk about it next year. But
next year we did, yes.
Yeah. I got really vulnerable. First of all, I came up with the people that I really feel confident in their feedback, that they don't have an agenda. Mostly my husband. I think he's very supportive of me. And so I asked him and this was very difficult for me. I'm going to tell you right now. I asked him, what are 3 things that you think that I could work on this year?
Oh, that is vulnerable.
Ouchie. Right.
Yeah. And you can't get mad at him.
And I also said, don't give me stuff that I want to work on, because we talk about everything. So I'm like, so he knows what I want to work on. I said, I want you to give me things that I think that that you think that I could benefit from? And he gave me 3 things. And I'm like, okay, you know what? He's right. Because sometimes the objective opinion, like on the outside is looking in, is much better than your own opinion in some ways, because we're blind to things that we are doing sometimes.
But it
So
has to be someone like a husband or like a very close friend who
yes,
knows
and that
you and not just trying,
yes.
yes, that you're going to even ask this question of.
Yes. And don't go on social media
Yeah,
and be like,
don't.
"Hey guys, what do you think I should do?"
Right.
Like I think that's the problem we have with social media, is that we treat it a, like a friend. And the people on our social media accounts, most of them haven't earned the right to have an opinion yet. Some people have, of course, but when you're opening yourself up like that, you're opening yourself up to criticism that is not necessarily coming from a good place. Like criticism coming from a good place is going to be helpful, right? If we have constructive criticism. But then if it's somebody you don't know well and you haven't gained that trust, they can give their opinion and they can really hurt you, and it could be not valid.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So the social media goals I don't love. I don't love talking about those social media goals unless you've actually you've put up an armor enough so that you can not let that criticism bother you, which I think is very few people.
Very, very few. As someone,
Yeah.
someone who fully on into the public, there's still comments where I'm just like, why this person who I don't know and don't, have any connection to, why did it hurt me? But it does. So, and I have to put up with it
Yeah,
quite
it
a bit.
does.
So I think that if that armor is always going to have a dent in it, because somebody is always
Yeah.
going to get to you.
Yeah. And there's a lot of like social media people too that will be like, well, this person said this, and you know what? I don't care. And I'm like, well, you just proved to
But you
everybody
didn't.
that you care by just addressing it.
Mhm.
So, we have a lot of things that go on with social media that I don't really love, but I have noticed anecdotally, I don't have research to back this, but I have noticed with my own clients, when they put their goals on social media, the amount of anxiety that comes out of that on race day ends up really affecting us. And anxiety on race day does matter. It does matter, because if you have too much anxiety, you have too much cortisol, and your race performance will suffer because of it. So we have to be careful when setting up our goals that we don't add stress to our life. Now, I would argue there's the other extreme of people that, and I used to be this extreme, I'm working on this myself, of keeping all of our goals secret. We got to not tell anybody what our goals are, because I would argue the reason people do that is because they're afraid of failure. And failure is not something that we should be afraid of. We are in this society. We're terrified to fail, especially in front of other people. But if you just think of failure as, and I would argue, I'm going to start speaking to my clients differently about this when they come on board. I'm going to say, are you prepared to fail? Because you are going to fail if you want to do anything long term. That's part of the process. It's part of learning. It's part of how we get more resilient and stronger. We wouldn't have learned so much about you had we not gone through the iron situation.
Right.
And it's not fun. I'm not going to say failure is like, let's be excited about failure. That's fun, but we have to be prepared to fail and be okay with it. And one of my clients this year, she really impressed me. She really wanted a 5K PR this year, and she had one more chance to 5K PR, and it was hot chocolate 15K or 5K, and it was hot.
It was real
And
hot.
I said,
It's real hot here in
it was
Tampa.
so hot. And she's in great shape. She's been working really hard, and that was the race she really wanted to PR. It was borderline. It was like 65 dew point. And of course, it's my job to tell you what the risks versus rewards are. And then it's your job to do what you want to do with that. Right. So, and most people do what I say. But this client said, you know what, coach, I always listen to you. I know you want me to be conservative, but I really want to PR this 5K, and I think I can do it. And I'm like, okay, I knew she was in PR shape. I knew she was. So I'm like, you know what? Go out, all out. And if you fail, as long as you know it's okay and we're going to learn from this, go for it. She had a 35-second
Wow.
5K PR that day. And I would argue, yes, she can still run faster if it was a colder day.
Right.
Absolutely. But whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And I have told this to my kids from a very young age. If you think you can't do something, why are you trying?
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of us that that gremlin in the back is like, we say out loud, oh, I know I can do it. I know I can do it. But in the back of our head, the gremlin's like, you can't do that. You're an imposter. You don't think you can do that, really. And then that imposter is going to win.
Well, and that also, if you have that in the back of your head, if you're listening, you're wanting someone to validate that a lot. So you're listening for anything. And it's like, oh, see, yeah, she knows.
Oh, yeah, that's
true. You start to feel that, like you feel that judgment from people, even though it's coming from you. You're just looking for it to come from someone else.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So I really want this year people to think about what in their goal, why are you choosing this goal, right? Like what about this goal, and write it down, right? Because when you write it down, you can go back and look at it. I know that's unsexy. Everybody says, keep a journal. It's not sexy to have a journal. I mean, it's just not.
But you could also put it on a Post-it note on your bathroom mirror.
Yes.
Look at it.
Put it somewhere. Yeah. Do a message board. Do something that you can reference back to your why. Because when we get clouded by all the other things in life, it's easy to forget why we made the goal. And I think my goal of meditation, why I wanted to do it, was a good goal. It was a goal of wanting to have balance and peace and live more in the moment. And I just think that this year, the way that I still actually got that this year, but I went about it a little differently than I thought I was, just by delving into the why I was frustrated with meditation and why I couldn't wrap my brain around it. And actually this year, I feel like I could probably meditate a little bit more. And actually that's one of the things that my husband just sent me about how I should meditate.
But you had a lot of life changes in the 6 months prior to you making that goal. And now you're settled. Your life is settled. So maybe now your mind is a little bit easier to settle.
Yes. And I have a better understanding of who I am. I think we need to really, like, we have this fixed mindset. A lot of people like, I am who I am. You're not going to change me. There is a happy medium between that and, oh, these are the constructive things I need to work on. Right. Yeah. And you have to be able to take a step back and look at yourself objectively and say, I do this well, I could work on this. And that's not being negative. It's not being negative to look at yourself and say, oh, I have so many people say, I don't like this. I'm never going to like this. I will use my husband as an example because he hates kiwi fruit. And he tells me, I hate kiwi. I'm never going to like kiwi. Well, do you know that your taste buds do change over time? They change every 7 years. So you really can not like something and like it again, but you have to try it in a different way. Right. So I always say, like, if you think you don't like something, keep trying it. Maybe you'll eventually like it. You never know. You might be missing out on something if you don't keep trying.
And try new things that you've already.
Yeah, things that you're not good at. Like and again, just because you hire a coach at running doesn't mean you're immediately going to be a good runner, right? Like anything that we do that is something that we're not genetically gifted at. And even I would say the genetically gifted people, they still have to work. Yeah. Like the winning combination is amazing genetics and amazing work ethic. Like, but how many people really have both of those?
Yeah, very, very few. So a lot of times,
which is why there are few Olympians, right?
Exactly. If we all had talent and we all worked really hard, we would all be going to the Olympics. The thing is, that is a precious few, but you can take whatever ability you have and keep trying to make it better. And that's what these goals
showing
yes.
up. Yeah. Keep showing up. And those goals are what keep you showing up, right? So again, you have to be careful about those goals, because I have a couple of people that are like, my goal is big and scary and I want to qualify for Boston and I know it's going to take me 5 years. Okay, great goal. That's a great goal. And I do think most people, it will take 5 to 6 years if you're not genetically gifted. If you're genetically gifted, you can qualify for Boston easier. That just is life. But if you come to me and say, I have 5 years, I'm going to say, you are not going to make it unless you have smaller goals. Because you can't, it's very difficult. Our brain doesn't work like that. We don't just say, oh, 5 years. Okay, I'll just wait 5 years. Like, you have to accomplish little goals before you're able to get to that. Like, our brain needs to accomplish things to keep that goal in perspective, right? So if we are not doing that, we're going to quit. Like, we have to see little wins. We have to.
And that's
so we got to set ourselves up for that.
And that's what some of the, as you do races throughout the years, leading up to that big 5-year goal, you learn about yourself, you learn where, what you need to work on. But it took all of those races, it took all of the little wins, all the little losses to get to the big goal in the end. But
yeah. And again, the mindset is everything. I have really learned that I have not given enough credence to mindset. I'm starting to recommend counseling to my clients more. I'm not a counselor, right? So I can only, but I've seen a lot of people, they go down a really negative path and they're like, well, I've had a few bad races, and then the bad races compound on, well, I feel like crap. And again, then you're looking for those reasons to quit. Because, and I mean, you went through some of this with the iron. It was like you were afraid to do things because you're like, oh, this is not going to feel right. This is not going to, and then, and you have to be careful about, we've talked a lot about that in terms of the elite athletes. The elite athletes, a lot of times they just say it was a bad day. Right. Oh, that was just a bad run. They don't like try to overanalyze it. Like we overanalyze everything because they know they might overanalyze it and it might not be right. Like you could say, oh, it was my shoes, that's why I got hurt. Well, it might not have had anything to do with your shoes, but you just now blamed your shoes for that. So like, there's so many things that we really have to think about why we say things to ourselves and whether the story that we're telling ourselves is, number one, helpful to our goal, or number two, setting us back from our goal. And I think a lot of times we set ourselves back because we're like, a lot of times we like to self-sabotage. That happens because what if we don't hit our goal?
Yep. It's scary.
And it is scary. Yeah. Like, that's why when you're being vulnerable, go to people that really care about you making that commitment and care about your goal. I mean, nobody's going to care about your goal as much as you do, but somebody that can reference your why and say to you, why is this your goal again? Like, why are you wanting this? Go back to your why. Let's talk about somebody that'll talk about it with you, that they're not just going to be like, well, you didn't work hard enough, or, somebody who's supporting you.
Yeah. And
there really are very few of them.
They're really very few. And they're, and you know exactly who those people are in your life because they are precious and they are few. But I mean, like, we're talking about this for any goal at this point. I mean, yes, we're focusing a lot on running, but it can be the sleeping. It can be, whatever goal you have, just think about why you have that goal. Are you trying to lose weight because you want to look like other people? Have you talked to your doctor?
Yeah.
Like, what is the why?
Exactly.
What is the why that is putting you with this goal?
Do I want to qualify for Boston because everybody's qualifying for Boston and it's cool? Do I want to, because there's this huge thing right now, and I've talked about this a lot on the podcast, that the marathon is the be all and end all, and everybody wants to run a marathon. And I would argue that running a 5K hard is equally as hard as a marathon. Like, if you don't think it's equally as hard, you're not running your 5K fast enough. It is a hard goal. And it is sexy. That is a sexy goal to improve your 5K. Like it is not something to balk at. That's how we talk, right? Oh, it's just a 5K. It's just a 5K. It's not just a 5K. Talk to a track athlete about a 5K. And they're like, no, I'm never doing a 5K. That's so hard. I like my 100.
They like that. When they even talk about the 800, a half mile, they're like, oh my God, we had to run 800. But it's
perspective, right?
Because if you're putting everything you have into that 800 meters or that mile or that 5K, it is hard. And so you just have to think about why, again, back to your why. What is it that you want to get out of it? Do you want to run a very hard, very tough 3.1 miles? Or do you put the time in the, the long term and put in for, the full marathon?
The aerobic capacity.
Yeah. But what is...
And I do think with the marathon, people tend to stick with the plan better because they're afraid of it.
Yes.
But I will tell you, running a 5K is very scary. If you are not like, if you put out your goal and say, my goal, like for me to say that I was going to break 20 in a 5K, I've never done it because I'm terrified. Like, I'm like, nope, that's too much work and it's too scary. So it just is. And I know it's going to hurt. So there's not a right or wrong to our goals. I wish that we could like kind of be less judgmental about our goals and just really think about what and how and why we want them. Like really why? Like are we going to feel better when we accomplish it, or are we going to feel worse, or are we going to feel, because I've talked about when I was qualifying for Boston, like part of the goal of qualifying for Boston was that I did something that I never thought I could do, right? And then once I got to that goal, it became, well, how come I didn't run it faster? And it's not what I wanted. And now that I have an autoimmune and I can't do what I thought I could do it. Now I look back and I'm like, gosh, darn it, Maria. I really wish you could have been like, good job on your goal.
Right.
You really accomplished that. And you should be really proud of it and sit in the happiness of the goal that you accomplished without being judgmental of it. Right. Or picking it apart and seeing how I could have done it better. Or, there can be some of that, but like, I think all too often we don't appreciate those little small goals that we hit. And then before we know it, like if we took a step back and we're like, oh my gosh, when I first started running, when I first did my first marathon, I was a 4:15 marathoner, like, and I went to a 3:30, like, wow.
We talk about longevity.
Yeah. And we talk about the long-term goal of, that was many, many years ago. And I'm still running. Like, I still love running every day. I'm still show up. I'm not going to say I'm like, because I talked about this with my running partner the other day. She was like, I said, how come your husband didn't come run with us? And she goes, oh, he didn't feel like running today. And I was like, oh, interesting. She goes, and I said, nobody feels like running.
You get out there, you show up. But you've also said that there, especially for sleeping, like if your body says that you need to sleep, you need to sleep. And that should be the one-off.
We don't wake up out of bed and be like, yes, I want to run today. Yes. I never regret it, but like, there is, again, we're talking about that balance of, is this going to help our goal or is it going to hurt our goal? It might help our goal to sleep a little bit,
right?
More. It might hurt your goal. So I don't know. You just have to know yourself really well, and you have to really think about your why. And if you're really focused on your why, you're gonna keep that goal a lot longer.
Yes. And that's why we called it goals and not resolutions, because resolutions peter out, which is what we've dealt with last year. So we're look deeper into that goal, and because the why is what's going to keep it going from January to December to the next January to the next December to the next January to the next December.
And please remember that when you see other people accomplishing all their goals online, and there's a lot of it right now, especially with this new weight loss drug out, and actually I feel kind of bad now because everybody that I see that's lost weight, I'm like, oh, that's the weight loss drug, right? Because everybody's on the weight loss drug. But what you don't see is all the stuff that people are putting in besides the weight loss drug, right? Like the walking and the careful eating and the, people don't put the unsexy stuff online, right? So it just may look like, oh, they had it so easy and they just qualified for Boston on their second one. But
They put a
you don't
lot of
see
work
all the
into it.
years.
Yes.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter. Like, even if genetically you're gifted and you still probably were running for a while before, like, it's not like the comparison thing you really got to be careful about, because you're only comparing yourself to somebody else's highlight reel and you're not seeing the work that goes in. And not very many people put in the unsexy work on social media and say, hey, look, this is what went into it. I mean, even with raising kids, people are like, oh, your kids are so great. Your kids are so great. I'm like, yeah, well, that was a lot of hard work,
Yeah.
right? Like, but you only see, oh, they accomplished this, and they accomplished this. And nobody's posting like, oh, that was a really rough day. And that person screamed at me that day or whatever. That person didn't do their homework that day or what, like, nobody puts that stuff out there. So be really careful when you're putting your goals out there. And remember that, like, there's a lot of hard work behind the scenes that everybody's doing.
Everybody. Yeah. Well,
Everybody's doing it.
Hopefully people are doing it if they're going to actually finish their goal. Do we
And make sure, find yourself some references.
Yeah.
Like, one of my goals this year is that I really want to protect my immune system so that virus doesn't come back. So I hired a coach to help me do that.
Mhm.
Like, if you don't feel like you can do that on your own, hire somebody to help you. Get some books that will tell you how to do it. There's plenty of goal coaches out there now. There's plenty of, people that really can help you and want to help you. Like, I love to help people get to their goals. It's so fun for me. So
And we like it too.
Don't feel like you're in it alone, right?
Yeah. Because but be careful who you're letting in, because don't do it alone, but don't feel like you tell, your neighbor's best friend, you don't know very well.
Don't tell your dentist. Your dentist doesn't care unless you're going to floss and that's your goal.
Then definitely tell your dentist, because he will appreciate it. All right.
That's true.
Time for the coach's drill. And you told me what this one was. And I specifically didn't ask what you meant by it so that I could hear. So,
okay.
In this minute drill, it's about abundance mindset.
Okay, in this new year, I'm going to challenge you guys all to think more in an abundance mindset. We tend to be negative minded. What's the word? Scarcity mindset. We think more with a scarcity mindset. And I really thought about it this year. FOMO is actually scarcity mindset, and people don't think it is, but it really is, because you're afraid that the moment is not going to happen again. So that's why you're afraid to miss out, right? So let's be less afraid of what we're going to miss out on and start to think about more of the things that we get, more of the things that we're grateful for, more of the things we're lucky to have. And when we have that mindset, good things come our way. So we think in terms of the things that we're going to get, we're going to receive, and the things that we're going to put out, the positive energy, the good vibes, the helping others, and then that comes back to us, right? Stop thinking about things we're going to miss out on.
Stop that FOMO.
Yeah, I mean, FOMO is like a real thing. And it's so funny because so many people are so busy, like, with the fear of missing out, that they don't realize the things that they have.
Right.
Right.
And think about, if you have to think about it in a way, think about the fact that what you're doing, someone else is out there with FOMO because of the things that you're doing. So
absolutely.
Sit in that for a minute and say, like, what I'm doing is so fun that there is somebody out there who is sad that they are not getting to do it. Meanwhile, I'm looking at somebody else and thinking I'm sad I'm not doing what they're doing.
I think about it a lot. I really think about it a lot. I actually think it's like my little secret to why I'm a very happy person. And it's mostly just because I think about it that way. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many people that wish that they have what I have, like, even if it's, my kids or my husband or my dog, that is amazing. But like, whatever you have, like, somebody else wishes they had that can't have that. So just appreciate what we have and really protect your energy around what you're going to put out there, right? Like where you're going to spend your time, who you're going to spend your time with. Try to focus on people that are not complaining as much. Complaining is not helpful. It doesn't help. It's like the least helpful attribute we have. It's unless you're going to complain with an action to change it. That's different. But complaining just for the sake of complaining has been proven by research, by neuro research, that it just is not helpful. It's not helpful. Yeah. So zero complaining.
No venting.
Right? It's hard to do, but
we have a whole year to work on all of these things. And then we have the rest of our life
today. That was a lot to digest today.
So we have a whole year to work on this, but we really have the rest of our lives to work on these things.
Yes, which that's what we need to think about. Like instead of thinking about what if I only have 1 year left? I have to do it all, right? Yeah. Think about what if you have 40 years left? Like, right? Like there is that balance. It's not it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be in the middle of, what's going to help my life in the next 40 years? The small goals, the small stuff that we can appreciate. That little Diet Coke, when my husband brings me home a Diet Coke and I get so excited, he's like, why are you so excited about this? I'm like, because I don't drink Diet Coke very much anymore. And so when you bring it to me, it's something I love. And it's exciting. Yeah.
It's the little things,
right? I'm not scarcity mindset.
And the knowing the why. The why is that he brought it to you, and that brought you joy.
Exactly. So. Right. Look for the joy. Look for the joy in things.
Happy New Year. I'm going to say it all week. I don't care what they say.
Happy New Year. I'm going to say it all monthly.
Happy 2024, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Happy 2024.
Good luck on your goals.
All right. Bye-bye.